I'm Deanne. The boardroom was deathly silent as I stood at the threshold, the fountain pen in my hand glinting under the fluorescent lights. Just moments ago, I'd walked in to find Hazel, the new power, hungry figure in the company, in full swing with her presentation. She was detailing her plans to restructure the company, plans that would have gutted everything that the previous owner, Amelia, had built. Hazel's eyes widened in shock when she saw me. Her carefully crafted confidence shattered like glass. "This is impossible," she stammered, her voice cracking. "You are terminated." I took a deep breath and stepped forward, my steps echoing in the silent room. "Terminated by what authority, Hazel?" "The authority you assumed you had. Let me take you back to how I got here. I grew up in a small town, the daughter of hard, working parents. My father was a mechanic, always tinkering with cars, and my mother was a schoolteacher. They instilled in me the values of hard work, loyalty, and integrity. I graduated from college with a business degree and landed a junior position at Crest Industries. It was an entry-level job in logistics, a position where you're invisible until something goes terribly wrong. But I was ambitious. I wanted to make a mark. I spent countless hours learning every aspect of the company. I memorized shipping routes, vendor contracts, and the names of warehouse managers in cities I'd never even visited. I studied our competitors' weaknesses and our own operational blind spots. I wanted to be the one who could solve any problem before it became a crisis. In 2005, the company was planning an expansion in Miami. Permit delays threatened to derail the entire project, and millions of dollars were at stake. The senior VP was ready to pull the plug, but I saw an opportunity. I was only 27 at the time, just a few years into my career, but I volunteered to fix it. I spent weeks living in a cramped corporate apartment, surrounded by the smell of industrial cleaner and takeout. I sat across from city officials and contractors, finding solutions in zoning regulations that everyone else thought were impossible. I negotiated with environmental activists who'd been fighting commercial development for years. I ran on coffee and pure determination. We broke ground 2 months ahead of schedule. Amelia, the owner of Crest Industries, called me into her office the next day. She was a tough woman, not one for small talk or smiles. But she handed me a well-worn copy of The Art of War and said, "Read this twice before making any major decision. You've got instincts, Deanne, but instincts without strategy are just a gamble." That book became my Bible. I underlined passages until the pages were almost falling apart. I carried it in my briefcase for years, a constant reminder that someone believed in my potential. Amelia promoted me quickly, first to senior operations manager, then to VP of supply chain, and finally to executive VP. I had an office on the 12th floor overlooking the city skyline, a far cry from my humble beginnings. I thought I was building a legacy, something that would outlast me. But I didn't realize that I was sacrificing my personal life for the company. My mother called me one evening in 2018. Her voice was weak, and she tried to sound casual. "The doctor wants to run some more tests, dear. But I'm sure it's nothing." I promised to visit her that weekend. But then, a major crisis hit the company. A key supplier threatened to walk away, and hundreds of jobs were at risk. I had to choose between my mother and my job. I chose the job. I flew to the supplier's location to negotiate, telling myself it was just for a weekend. The test results came back, and my mother had stage 4 cancer. She passed away while I was in the middle of negotiations. I got the news when I landed back home. The guilt has been with me ever since, a heavy weight in my chest. I went back to work, as if nothing had happened. I kept telling myself that my mother would have understood, that the work I was doing was important. Amelia always said that my mother had raised a woman who could save families, and that 400 families still had paychecks because of me. A few years ago, Amelia started talking about succession planning. She was in her late 60s, still sharp as a tack, but realistic about her mortality. I assumed she'd promote from within, someone who understood the company's culture and values. Then came Lily. She was in her early 30s, with Ivy League credentials and a ruthless efficiency. Amelia hired her as VP of operations and immediately started treating her like the heir apparent. I was disappointed, but I told myself it made strategic sense. The company needed new energy, new ideas. But I started to notice things. In budget meetings, Lily would challenge the decisions Amelia and I had made, suggesting more aggressive approaches that prioritized short-term profits over long-term stability. Younger managers were drawn to her, nodding along as she dismissed decades of institutional wisdom as legacy thinking. I watched Amelia grow quieter in those meetings. Her sharp rebuttals turned into tired agreements. I told myself she was making room for the next generation, but sometimes I saw a look of doubt in her eyes. Last year, Amelia was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. She kept working through chemotherapy, her hair thinning under silk scarves. The board grew restless, and investors started whispering about leadership transitions. Lily began acting like the CEO she hadn't officially become yet. She reorganized departments without consulting anyone. She replaced senior managers with her own hires, young and ambitious people who shared her philosophy that sentiment was a weakness and loyalty was just a word. I wanted to fight back, but I was exhausted. I'd given so much to the company, and I was starting to wonder if it was all worth it. Amelia died on a Sunday morning while I was at home, going over quarterly reports. Her assistant called me with the news. I sat on my couch, stunned, unable to process the words. Amelia, the strong and unyielding woman who'd built Crest Industries from the ground up, was gone. The funeral was a show. Her nephew, who I'd met once at a holiday party, gave a speech that made her sound like a motivational poster. Board members offered condolences that felt more like networking opportunities. 3 days later, I got a call from the hospital. They'd found something in Amelia's personal effects addressed to me. I rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding. The nurse handed me a leather portfolio. Amelia had left very specific instructions that had been given to me exactly 3 days after her death. I sat in my car and opened it. Inside were stock certificates and transfer agreements. Amelia was transferring 46% of Crest Industries to me. Combined with the 5% I'd accumulated over the years through employee stock purchase programs, I now had a 51% majority control. I also found a tablet with a video message from Amelia. In the video, she looked frail, but her eyes were still sharp. "Deanne," she said, "if you're watching this, I'm gone. I've watched Lily operate, and I know what she'll do. She'll destroy everything I've built. But you understand what this company really means. You've sacrificed so much. These documents transfer majority ownership to you. But don't reveal this yet. Let Lily think she's won. Let everyone show their true colors." I held the fountain pen that Amelia had used to sign the company's incorporation papers. It was a symbol of her legacy, and now it was mine. Monday morning, I walked into the office with a dozen red tulips, a gesture of respect for Amelia's legacy and a hope for a smooth transition. I walked into the boardroom, and Lily looked at me with cold eyes. "Pack your desk, Deanne. You're done here." The wrong name stung like a slap. Around the table, new directors appointed by Lily sat motionless, their faces blank. No one spoke up for me. I was humiliated, but I remembered Amelia's words. I told myself to be patient. I packed at my office, my heart heavy. Colleagues stared at me as I walked out, some with pity, others with relief that it wasn't them. That evening, I got a message from a colleague, Tom. He'd recorded a conversation where Lily was talking about her plans to restructure the company. She called me a relic and said she was cutting out the cancer of sentimentality. I was furious, but I knew I had to wait. Amelia's voice echoed in my mind. Patience and timing win more battles than force. I spent the next few days coordinating with board members I trusted, like Sarah and Mark. We planned every detail for the quarterly board meeting. Friday morning, I arrived at the office early. The lobby felt different, charged with anticipation. I walked into the boardroom as Lily was in the middle of her presentation. She was detailing her plans to cut 35% of the workforce to boost profits. Just as planned, my assistant, Ava, burst in with the news that the SEC filing was public. Everyone's phones lit up with a notification of the ownership transfer. Lily's face turned white. She stammered, trying to find words. I stepped forward, the fountain pen in my hand. Amelia transferred majority ownership to me 3 days after her death. While you were planning your takeover, she was planning a test. And over the past few days, you've all shown who you really are. One by one, board members started to vote in my favor. Lily's support evaporated. I offered her a choice: resign with a severance package or stay as VP of Operations and learn what real leadership means. She chose to resign. The room erupted in applause. I'd won, but the victory felt hollow. I thought about my mother and all the sacrifices I'd made. That evening, I found a letter from Amelia in the portfolio. She wrote that this wasn't just a victory, but a responsibility. She gave me a choice: leave the company and build a life for myself, or stay and carry forward her legacy. I spent the weekend thinking about it. By Monday, I'd made my decision. I called an all-staff meeting and promised them a company where people mattered, where loyalty and innovation could coexist. As I walked back to my office, past the wilting tulips on my desk, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could build a legacy that honored Amelia and my mother.